Doesn't even feel like it's going to be, that monumental, because there's going to be a lot more that we're going to come back and start doing. But this episode it's going to be like a paranormal perspective. I kind of wanted to do something where we give back to the people who we want to get back to you. We want to get back to the listener. We want to get back to the people that understand what we're doing, how we're trying to put it out there, and how we're trying to make a legitimate podcast, legitimate news source, legitimate think tank, really. Just being able to do what we do, guys, on so many different levels has become such an honor to me that I really can't even begin to thank you for it. So that's what this episode is. This episode, for people that are listening now and in the future. This episode is basically an episode to give back, where we talk about you, we talk about some of the guests, we talk about the people that have come on, and we just get back. So I'm hoping that people actually do call in with their stories and talk with us, because that's the intention of the episode. But that can only so much can go with hope. That is why we have stories. We have our own things submitted by people actually here, just in case. But the idea behind it really is just so we can have a more communal page. As I said before, and as I've been saying, I definitely want us to be more involved with one another. I want there to be a connection, so to speak. I want us to have a more tight group. I don't know. All this division that I've been seeing lately on Instagram and on social media, it's really got me thinking, do I really need to deal with all this nonsense? And the answer is, not really. I really don't. But what I want to do to combat it is to try to actually get to the source of it, figure out a way to where we can get down to the nitty gritty, realize that it's us against them. If we don't figure out what the actual issue is, then we're doing more damage to ourselves than the actual enemy themselves are. I know I'm ranting. I know I'm talking about a whole lot, and I'm really trying to just condense it because I'm excited and at the same time ecstatic for all the other things that we have going on. But before I jump in and rant some more about a few other things, let me get into a few updates. Final episode, obviously, and I will leave this up there for you guys so you guys can listen to what we're doing and kind of get caught up, because this generalized episode is just going to kind of, it's nothing heavy, it's nothing basic. It's a more medium type introductory episode, so to speak, to where people can understand the page. But we are moving towards season 5, and what I want to do more so with it is add the call-in feature. And if anything, people should save this number for the future. Save 646-787-8314. Save that in your phone, and the next time that we do a live show, call in, and I'll start scheduling shows more, and then we can start scheduling more Instagram lives where people can ask their questions, and it'll be a whole. It really will be a whole deal. Okay, and outside of doing things on Instagram Live where you can sit there and hear me rant for about an hour or so, we want to do something different with the actual show. You see, there's a lot of different things that I'm trying to do. And as I said before, I will be restructuring the website to handle the amount of information and the amount of work that we're going to start putting in. The documentaries that we've made, building the Matrix, the autonomous society, as well as the other articles that we're starting to write. Guys, there's so much work that I put in to this operation that I literally have to change what I started with to deal with the amount of information that's coming out and the amount of content that I'm trying to provide to you guys. And one of the things that we are heavily debating is whether or not to keep on Paradox Radio, or if we should dedicate that time to hanging out with you guys, doing the minicast. And there's really so much stuff going on in the behind the scenes, guys. But all I can really say is make sure you're going to the website, factionsoffreedom.jimdo.com. And once you're there, you can actually start seeing all the other stuff that I'm doing, because it is for you guys. It's not meant for me. It really is to try to make the craft better so you guys can understand it. You can understand the information. You can understand the times that we're in, and there won't be any complications. So yeah, that's all I can really say, guys. So with that being said, let's actually kick off this episode. Let's kick off the season 4 final episode. Yeah, yeah. So what's funny? What's funny about this? The idea behind doing this particular episode is we should be at least on volume 3 of a Paranormal Perspective. And for people that are new joining, uh, the Paranormal Perspective, was basically intended for people to send their stories in. First and foremost, let themselves know that they're not crazy. They can look at these types of things, and that there are other things taking place in the world. The other dual meaning uh, behind the Paranormal Perspective is to kind of monitor some of the things that are taking place with CERN. And a lot of what we cover on the show is dimension slips, time slips, the multiverse, and things of this nature, where we have other worlds bleeding in, or where we start talking about the tethered verse, where we start talking about this multidimensional existence that we have. And really delving deep into trying to understand what that is. You know, why can we understand what ghosts are and differentiate between angels, spirits, deceptive demons, and things of this nature. But there's so much that we'll get into with this. But the idea behind the Paranormal Perspective was for people to send their stories and let them know that they're not crazy. Because I myself, and I'm sure I'll talk about that sometime within this broadcast, have experienced strange things. I don't think that's I don't think that's strange at all. I think what is strange is how we've learned to turn ourselves off to this very spiritual nature that we have. So it's very crazy. It's very crazy. Um, if anything, like I said, we should be on at least volume 3. But what I did with volume 3 was whenever we actually started talking about Project Grill Flame, Project Centerlane, Project Sunstreak, and the other projects that alluded to us having psychokinetic powers. Whenever we start talking about psychics, whenever we start talking about the ability that people have, you see. But and it's crazy because whenever I put these things out there to people, you know, have you ever had an experience or had anything strange happen to you? You know, you're gonna get a few crazies in the mix. You're gonna get a few crazies. You're gonna get a few things out there, and you're gonna get a few gems, a few rubies in the rough, a few diamonds in the rough that kind of allude to what's actually going on. And the reason why I say that is because the why do we confuse, or why do we at least group the why do we group aliens, demons, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, all the ghosts, all this other paranormal stuff? Why do we consider it paranormal? Because they are all interconnected to some degree. You see. So one of the things I want to look at real quick, just read you guys one of these stories. And this is so many. Where would one even start? Okay, let's start with this. And this is from the psychic's submission. Whenever I ask people, what's the difference between an empath and a psychic? And this is a story from Contently, and it says, when I was coming into consciousness, about 3 to 6, I'd have these vivid dreams, so vivid that they reoccur. I told my mom about them, and one time she cried and asked me how I knew that. It was like I was watching it through a window in her womb. But it was something that happened in my family 3 years before I was born. I have proved telepathy to myself so many times. Almost every night, I lay on my dominant palm on my man's back while we're falling asleep, and I think to him how much I appreciate him. I've actually shared the story before, and how much I appreciate him and cherish him, and how I've proved to him that he hears it, even though he passes out way before me a few times. When we're both too exhausted to get intimate, I'll think to him, "Wake me up in the morning, it's all yours," and he never misses that. So I'm pretty stoked that I can pour out all of my cheesy romantic stuff, and he doesn't get anxiety about it or reciprocating it, because he already treats me like a goddess. Now I think that's beautiful. But the simple idea behind that, by explaining that type of story, you know, I think a lot of people don't really understand, like I said, the multidimensional nature of the human being. And this is why we cover things on the show the way that we do. looking at everything that takes place. I mean, where would you even begin with what's going on in the food, what's going on in the air with the chemtrails, you know, what's going on with the vaccines, what's going on with the food, and epigenetic diseases. You know, why are they trying to do so many different things to numb the human experience? It's because we are so powerful, and that we're meant to spiritually evolve and adapt things in that way. But what they're trying to do is physically trap us here. So what I'm trying to say by reading the story only briefly is to talk about how we can actually display ESP. We can display psychic abilities. We can show empathic abilities due to our inherent nature. But that's because it's part of us. But if this isn't something that's exercised like any other muscle, it's going to be weak. It's going to lack. It's not going to have as much power. This is why prayer, meditation, and things of this nature are very important. And I actually appeared on the Spoons of Consciousness podcast, and I'll release the episode. I think it's either sometime in August or sometime in October. But in the episode, we actually talk about how we have this proclivity to just turn ourselves off to all these other things that are going on. It's as if we've learned to just become three-dimensional in our thinking. We think that we're only here in this existence. That's wrong. We are souls having a very physical experience. We're having a human experience. Let me pull out one of these other stories. So there's also, yep, right there, dreams, predictions, and future sight. There's so much. There's so much. Really, there really is so much, guys. And I want to just say thank you again for for sending in your stories. But right here, this is a good story, and it was sent in by Sleep Dreams. It says, me and my best friend were in my parents' kitchen once, making something to eat. Now, I was on the countertop opposite to him. When I turned around, I saw him facing the corner, but there was something behind him. It was a figure, all black, completely like a void. It wasn't taller than him, but it was hovering behind him. It was amazingly creepy. And I have a few more stories like that as well that kind of talk about how there's some weird, not even weird, but there's some kind of extra dimensional sense, or not even extra dimensional sense. There's some kind of other entities. There's some other realm, some other existence, some other plane, some other dimension, something right there which we do interact with, that is interacting with us, and that has an influence over us. But due to our modern adaptation to society, we cannot see these things. We cannot see these shadow people. We cannot see what is literally trying to haunt us. This is why whenever you see that movie, They Live, it's like it's a documentary. Whenever you start doing research into people who have said they've had encounters with these shadow people, these hat people, or these entities, you know, they say they always find themselves at the middle chakra, or somewhere in the heart chakra and in the stomach chakra, because they're literally they're hosts. They are literally being possessed, and they might not even know it. That's another thing. Just the other day, and let's see, this isn't necessarily Paranormal Perspective, but just the other day, we heard about how Lana Del Rey, and this is something I've been going on and on about the entire year. Basically, Lana Del Rey and Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, and these witches, the witches that bind Trump. We found out that Lana Del Rey attempted witchcraft against Trump. Now, that's opening the door for more things like this to happen. And as I've been saying, clearly it is taking place, and it's going to keep happening. But what we're dealing with now is lower level people who have no idea about the things that they are doing, opening up doorways and spirits, and allowing these entities to come through. I have a story later on for you guys where a person who talks about actually coming into contact with a spirit was playing with a Ouija board. Now, he says that he put the Ouija board away. You know what? Let me just get into this. Yeah, I'll just tell you the story. I'll tell you the story now. But the idea behind trying to talk about this is saying that these witches, these people that are practicing witchcraft, that are practicing Satanism, that are practicing chaos magic, dark magic, and we even have a story about other people practicing Santeria, which is a form of Cuban magic. These people that are practicing these things and not necessarily sure about their actions are letting loose forces that they have no control over, doing things and causing all kinds of different problems on levels that they can't even see. So let me get into the story right quick about that Ouija board and what happens, and what happened with this individual. And it comes from Blaze for the Cure. It says, once when I was like 12, we were playing with an Ouija board, and obviously it never moved, so we put it away. And he doesn't really tell us whether or not he closed out the proper session, but continuing on, it says, after a while, I started to feel like I couldn't breathe, like there was a tightness around my neck. I got super sad, not scared, just sad. I couldn't figure out why. So then I backed away and saw a very clear image of a large Native American man wearing a headdress. And this is where he kind of tells off. He says, and well, I'm not exactly sure what it was all, what all it was, but like what a Native American would wear after the white man settled and gave them blue jeans and whatnot. But anyway, when my eyes opened, there was a feather on the floor, and I saw the man. The feather came off of his dream catcher we had hanging in the next room over. I couldn't figure out for the life of me what the hell was going on. So I went to get my mom, because at this point I was legitimately so sad. I just didn't know what to do with my life. And I didn't even know why I was sad. But now I was a little scared because I just saw this Native American man standing in front of me. Turns out, before we moved to our neighborhood, a Native man owned the house next to ours. He was extremely depressed and hung himself. I've never seen a photo of the man and don't know if one would even exist. But that's the only semi-reasonable explanation as to why that went down the way it did. Now, whether or not the man was actually seeing Native American ghosts, whether or not he was actually coming into contact with spirits, whether or not he was doing any of these types of things, I think there's a lot of different ways that story could be interpreted. The very fact that he's coming into contact with other spirits, the very fact that he's seeing ghosts, and another story that I have later on for you as well is how a pair of brothers were sleeping one night and they were woken up by what he describes as lights, purely bright lights that seemed like a fire truck right outside of his window. And him and his brother witnessed this, and they talk about it. But what I'm trying to say is we don't know whether or not these people who are coming into contact with shadow people are coming into contact with ghosts. We don't know if they're coming into contact with human spirits. We don't know if they're coming into contact with animal spirits. We don't know if they're coming into contact with demons. We don't know what's happening, but we do know things are happening in general. A lot of people say they experience sleep paralysis and they see strange entities, these shadow people, or that they come into contact with something unexplainable. Now, what is that? Why is that right there? And I'm sure, we'll get responses with people saying, this is demonic. This is Luciferian. No, I assure you that we are not trying to practice. We are not trying to practice any of that. What we're trying to do is differentiate between all these other things that we are experiencing right now. You see, what I'm trying to say is whenever we're seeing the rise of these types of things take place, the rise of encounters, experiences, sleep paralysis, possessions. I mean, look at what's going on with the Vatican Church. I could go on for days about how corrupt the church is at the moment. But the point I'm trying to say is we're living in a day of spiritual wickedness. We're having days of we're having days of we're lacking moral fabric. We don't really have a moral compass. These are the days of confusion. You see. I know it sounds kind of wild, but there's a lot of different, in a weird way, we are talking about mysticism. In a weird way, we are talking about spiritualism. We're talking about religion. We're talking about all these things that are considered paranormal, supernatural. Or maybe that's it. Maybe they're supernormal. Maybe they're real. They're constantly here, but we're choosing to turn ourselves off to it. There's another story right here for you guys. And this is not so much a story as it is a statement sent in by Soft Whisper 1111. It says, evil spirits will imitate your recently deceased immediate family member to fool you into thinking that your deceased member is in the home to protect you. She puts protect in quotes, and that's right, because how would you react if you saw your grandma? How would you react if you saw your grandfather? How would you react if you just saw somebody that was right there? You see, your guard would be down. They would allow for them to contact you. There would be contact. They wouldn't think so much about it. You wouldn't think so much about it. You would think that this is somebody you just saw. And the way things are today, with blue beam technology, holographic technology, a lot of our senses are easily being played on. So you've got to ask yourself a question of what's exactly happening. So it seems we have a call in. We'll go to you, caller, and if anything, we'll come back to this story. Caller, can you hear me?
Awesome. Thank you for coming on.
Oh,
there you go.
Oh,
I think the call was lost. Anyway, getting back into this.
I think the call was lost. Anyway, getting back into this. Whenever, I hope they try to call back in, but getting back into why spirits try to stay on ground, stay around people, as we had with a previous story about how that man saw the Native American spirit after playing with the Ouija board. That could have been something attached to the actual house. It could have been attached to the land. It could have been attached to the board itself. But as we're talking about with this story over here, spirits being in your house trying to protect you, that's them trying to get access into your life. Like a vampire, these things need to have, they have to have, what's it called? Permission. They have to be granted authority to come inside the house. That's why you have the authority to kick them out. Let that be known for sure. Let me get back into the story. It says, your loved one is dead, but for God, they're asleep, having no dreams, no consciousness, and their spirit rests. In order to get to that spirit out of your home, you need to pray it out. I know this because my brother and I experienced this. I was trying to sleep in my old bedroom with my ex-husband, and my brother was doing the same in the living room with my mother. My mother, who is afraid of horror movies, but has practiced Santeria, and as I said before, Santeria is mistaken for voodoo, but it is a form of communication with the spirits and thought to be another form of magic. It was my stepfather who had died that year, and these ghosts that people talk about, they are demons. They can be peaceful in the beginning, wanting you to think, oh, it's Grandma here protecting me. Thank you, Grandma. I love you. No, it isn't. You have a negative presence in your home. And they're actually precisely right. Like any kind of predator, they always try to come in nicely at the beginning. Being sweet, being kind, being loving. If anything, this is why they try to get children. This is how they get children, by playing with children first, only for them to be allowed to come into their house. So I think the caller tried to call back. Let's see if we can get him on.
Yeah.
Caller, can you hear me?
Awesome. Thank you for calling.
Can you explain how ghosts are possible?
Well, there's a few different ways to actually answer that.
Well, there's a few different ways
question.
to actually answer that, and that's actually a great question. Thank you for asking. Whenever you think about it, what happens to, I don't know, what is a psychic impression? What happens whenever you leave an impression anywhere? I don't know if that makes sense, but think about it in the terms of say you visited your favorite place every day in the same place for a year, for tens of your entire life, like 20 years or so, right? You have a psychic connection to this place. You have an attachment to this place, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Say you tragically died. Say something suddenly took place and unfortunately your life was taken from you. What would that do? How would you be remembered? What of your life would you remember if you came back to life at all, or if you chose to stay here instead of cycling through life? Your memories, precisely, it would be at that specific place. Your mind, or that impression, or whatever you're leaving here, interacts with what's familiar. Does that make sense?
I know that kind of sounds all out there, but there's a lot of different ways to look at it. I mean, have you yourself had any experiences or anything like that happen?
No.
No. Well, consider yourself lucky.
Well, I think when I was a kid, I think I saw like a ghost before. A day before my sister had a seizure.
Ooh, wow. And what about your sister? Did she ever say anything about seeing anything or feeling anything prior to having the seizure?
Yeah.
Yeah?
She said she felt weird.
She felt weird.
Like she was like lightheaded.
That is weird. Well, I mean, you know, the thing with seizures is people actually can feel them coming on. There's like they say it feels like what's it called? Ginger ale in people's skulls right before it comes on. But I hate to kind of shuffle you off, my friend, but apparently the people listening can't hear you, so I'm going to try to figure that out. And if anything, I'd love to have you call back.
All right.
You have yourself a good one.
You too.
You have yourself a good one. So unfortunately, you guys couldn't hear the caller, as I'm seeing now. He was basically asking, what makes a ghost? What is a ghost? And then, as you heard, I asked him, where had he had any experiences? Was there anything that happened to you? And the answer was no. The caller was basically asking, what makes a ghost? And so I'm trying to explain to him how, in certain situations, those types of things can happen. You can be in such a traumatic position to where all you see, or where all you really remember, is the better parts of your life, your memories. That's what define you. And sorry, like I said, guys, this is the beta episode. If anything, we are still trying to figure out how to get all this stuff up and running without any problems. Gets a little bit difficult, but we'll figure it out. We will figure it out. So yeah, let me get back into a few more of these stories, so we don't peter off too much. Okay, and since we're already on the topic of shadow people, let's talk about this. Let's talk about, and this is a story from Justin Johannick. It's just a quick one, nothing too crazy. He says, I've seen a shadow person once. It turned and looked at me, and its face was as dark as the rest of its body. No eyes, just pitch blackness. Had a cowboy type of hat on. Shit was real as day. No drugs, no booze. I experienced some even weirder things in those insane asylum or mental hospital turned apartments in Casper, Wyoming. Like lots of pounding noises, to the extent that the neighbors were blaming each other and recording it. If you look out the window, the view of a cemetery is right there. You seriously cannot make this up, and that's what he's got right there. And you're right, yeah, that would be scary. That would be sketchy. Why would you convert a mental asylum into an apartment? That would be so weird. So weird. That's basically asking for trouble. That is asking for trouble. And what's weird, thank you for the submission, Justin. Talking about this type of stuff is always wild. What's weird is, on some of the cases and things that I've done on this end, it has, seeing some of the things that I've seen and encountering some of the things that I've encountered, conducting my own personal investigations, is awe-striking. You really don't think about a lot of this stuff having an effect until you're confronted with something that you really can't even comprehend, and it's basically telling you that you need to either get out or you need to protect yourself. Like I said, one of the reasons as to why we cover the show in the way that we do is so that we can look at how this stuff affects us in a very spiritual nature. As I said before at the start of the show, we're moving into a world that doesn't involve spirituality, that tries to leave that out. It tries to chop it up to mumbo jumbo, make it sound as if it's inconsequential to our existence, when actually that is our existence. These entities, why do you think they prey on us? Why do you think they harp on us? It's because we have something that they don't. We have a light. We also have a life. We have something that they need. This is why these demons, these people in the Illuminati, the Luciferians, these Satanists, this is why they strive for so much blood, so much wickedness, and so much evil, because they have got to feed off of our fear and our negativity. And these entities, that's how they do that. That's how they prey on you. They find you whenever you're at your low, whenever you're trying to recover, whenever you're trying to wake up, whenever you're just getting your day started, whenever you're at your most vulnerable. That is how they seize you. But what does that mean? How does that work? You see, right here we have another story from Liazo Amazing. She says, I think that's sounds like a chick's name. The odds do amazing. I'm not sure. The story goes like this, or the statement goes like this. I don't think it's strange because we only focus our attention on a small frequency band of visual light. I agree. We've talked about this as well. The about 3% density of visible light that we can see, and then you got to think about what colors we can't see. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. So she's right. But the story goes on to say that the more our consciousness expands, the more we can tune into a more expanded awareness, which allows us to see beyond the third dimension. And then she also goes on to say that a week ago, while meditating, I felt something grabbing my ankles. There was definitely something present, but I refused to stop my meditation, and it disappeared. Now, I think when looking at stuff like this, and this is why meditation has become such a controversial topic, and why you have to explain it in comparison to things like channeling and prayer, is because people think that when you're dealing with meditation, you're dealing with spirits, you're dealing with demons, you're dealing with all things negative. You're not actually. People think it's like, I don't know. People think you've given up your control over yourself, as if you're unable to distance yourself from these entities. I think a lot of people who are professional at meditation as well as prayer can differentiate between the energies that are coming on, if that makes sense to you guys. And what I'm trying to say is when we understand this multidimensional reality and this existence that we are in, realizing our potential, realizing how much is actually within us, you start to get a bigger picture of what's going on. And so, as she said right there, consciousness expansion, being able to be more aware of things outside of the third dimension, what we're talking about is how there is, and ironically enough, I talked about this in our episode with Rob and Libertas on the dimensions of flat Earth, where we're talking about different planes of existence, different states of existence, and as it's put here, different forms of awareness. And I know that kind of sounds new agey. I'm sure that sounds demonic, but when we're looking at these things, we've got to understand that these principles, this archetype, this awareness, this stuff has been here long before us. It's only, as I said before at the start of the show, it's very rare and very modern for us to turn ourselves off to it, to actually what's going on. But let me get into some more of these stories. I'm sorry to rant all over the place because there's just so much that encompasses all of this stuff. Let's get into this story right here, and this is from Jenny Juliet 88. And it says, about 4 years ago, in 2013, really late one night, I went out into my living room, and my mom was awake. She looked very troubled. Said she couldn't sleep, and said she felt like something, or someone, was bothering her. So, we decided to hold hands and say a prayer for her. In doing so, in the middle of the prayer, something violently started trying to pull her hands and arms away from mine. I rebuked the fear that I felt and kept on in prayer. We finished despite the resistance and told that son of a to go away. She had a good night's sleep afterwards. So why would something not want you to pray? Why would something like that not want you to pray? What would be the idea behind trying to cancel a prayer? Who would that benefit? Well, that benefits the demon, because if you can stop what is being used to cast you out, you can still keep your domain. You can still keep your safe haven. You can still feel like they have control. And you've got to realize that we give them the control that they think they have. Whenever they try to come at us, assuming as if the power that they're seeking, or the power that they think they have, is greater than ours, realize that we are the ones with the light. We are the ones with the life. As I said before at the start of the show, a section of the show, we talked about sleep paralysis and how this is also tied to what I would consider demonic encounters, encounters with spirits, encounters with whatever other entity is just right here. You see, this story comes from Villain 90 and says, I've had a few episodes of sleep paralysis in my life, each one more intense and sinister than the last. The most recent experience occurred this past April. After conducting my own research, I'm convinced there are far too many similarities in the reports and accounts of others for the phenomenon to be mere coincidence or explicably through science alone. I can't even begin to imagine what it's like for those who suffer from it almost every night. I thought that was a very, very, very well thought out and thorough response to the stuff that's going on, because what we're essentially dealing with is, as Villain 90 said there, these are multiple reports around the entire world. This isn't something that picks a specific demographic. This is going on. These things are happening not only to you, but they're happening to people around you. They're happening to people who don't even want to talk about it, who can't even fathom this stuff. That is why we share these types of episodes. That is why we have these types of things to talk about it, because as wild as it might sound, it's already happened to someone else. It's been happening to someone else. One of the reasons as to why we're on only volume 3 of the Paranormal Perspective is because, like I said, with the projects, the powers and the psychics, where we talked about Project Stargate, where we also had on Zach to talk about his premonitions. Those are both episodes where we intended to have more of these listener viewer submission stories, the Paranormal Perspective. But because so much information correlating to this experience that we're collectively having, looking at all this stuff, the evidence becomes overwhelming. You see, it's like, how do you disprove this stuff? How do you disprove people having premonition? How do you disprove like people literally having a feeling or knowing something before it takes place and then saying, I told you so, or writing down variable parts of what is actually taking place? Why is the military trying to profiteer off of the sixth sense? You see. So whenever you have people like Villain 90, who's actually submitted this to us, talking about feeling pain for the people who go through this every night, it's wild. It's wild. Give me 1 second, team. We are trying to do some live time editing, as always. As always. Okay, so let's get into another story real quick. And this one was kind of strange. I think this is the actual story. Nope, that's the wrong one. That is the wrong one. You know what? We're just going to go ahead. We'll come back to that one. But I think this is a good story to explain some of the weirdness surrounding shadow people and some of their other encounters, and the strangeness surrounding it, the high strangeness surrounding all of that. And this comes from Joey's Conspiracy, it says, and I was hoping he would call in to talk about this himself. I hope he does, but in the event that he doesn't, let's get this on right now. It says, I'm hesitant to write this. I still experience something I'd say is paranormal, and I've been experiencing it since I was little, mainly at night, but I remember being able to experience it during the day, and it always includes having to have no noise. Strange. Something comes over me and I see black, and I'm overwhelmed with the feeling of non-existence. It's the only way of being able to explain or describe the sensation. The reason I say it's paranormal is because I've never met anyone who can relate to this experience or say that they understand what I'm talking about, because it's an extreme feeling that I literally have to be snapped out of by getting hit or grabbed really hard, like shaking, so that I can come back to myself. Now, how would you explain possession? How would you explain an attempt at possession? How would you explain oppression, spiritual oppression? How would you explain something coming over you to where you have no control over yourself, as if you yourself are dwindling away, but your body is still present? How do we explain these strange things that are going to keep going on, that will continue to keep happening unless we try to understand them? And I'm not saying that everybody needs to go out there and be Ghostbusters, and I'm not saying that everybody needs to go out there and be an exorcist, especially these days with what's going on in the Vatican Church. But what I am saying is be fully aware of the wiles of the devil. Be fully aware of these other things that are going on. As I said before, with people who are practicing witchcraft and entirely unaware that they're doing so. Being unaware that they are actually opening up doorways, opening up portals, and allowing the spirits to come in. How many people, it really does, for me, it gets crazy trying to understand how many different things and different aspects of this engages us. How do you talk about people opening up doorways and then also being the anchor for these spirits, and then subtly being influenced by these entities over time? How do you talk about that? But you can have people like Lana Del Rey, Katy Perry, and all these other chicks out here talking about practicing witchcraft against Trump. This is basically all just a continuation from spirit cooking, from Pizzagate, from Pedogate. All of that wickedness, that's literally just manifested itself in a different way. So it seems like we have a caller, and unfortunately, he has been on the line for about 15 minutes. Let's see if we can get him on. Caller, can you hear me? Oh, sorry about that.
Can hear me or not, but.
I hope so. Let's cross our fingers.
Okay.
I want to say thank you for calling in. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for having the show.
I try to. I want to create an open discussion. Let people take part in everything that's going on.
Right. I appreciate that. I have some comments about how are ghosts possible that other caller was asking about. I just wanted to give my opinion and my experiences on that.
Oh, okay. And what kind of you wanted to give your experiences on that? Please do.
Yes, my experience. Okay, so I have a certification in psychic studies, and they said cannot hear caller. What is going on with your system?
We are still in the process of trying to get used to everything. So
I'm just messing with you. It's okay. Don't worry about answering that. But okay, so I have my certification in psychic studies from 2014. I graduated from the Aspen program of psychic development in Denver, Colorado, and they still can't hear me. Should I continue or should I don't know what to do. Probably have to let you figure it out, right?
I'm going to go ahead and say continue. We're broadcasting both on video and streaming audio, so I'll come back through and edit it, but you're fine.
Okay, so I graduated from the Aspen program. I had gone to classes there. I originally signed up just to go to a dream class, like on a whim, just like, oh, this sounds cool. Little did I know that it would open up a whole new world to me. I only went for psychic studies, really, but I ended up becoming a medium because my spiritual communication gifts are so advanced and I can easily connect with spirits. And so I ended up becoming a medium because of it. And I just wanted to do psychic stuff. Like, I don't want to talk to the dead or anything, but now I am able to, and it's kind of it's helped me get through a lot of deaths of people that were more than the world to me, you know. And so I've been able to deal with death in a whole new life, and in a whole new light, not life. And recently, one of my really close friends, her child's father had OD'd. Well, that's what they're saying. He overdosed on heroin, and I was able to find him, let him know that he was dead, because he thought he was alive still, because he had done heroin like off and on his whole life. And so he had explained to me that when he did heroin, it was like he was dead anyways, and that's why he didn't know that he had OD'd. She lives in a whole other state from me, okay? Like, she lives on the West Coast and far away from me, and I was able to describe his clothing exactly to how he had his hair done when he died. I described everything from his shoes, his pants, his shirt, his hairstyle. We've been able to make him have communication with her at her home through letting one of the baby's toys go off. Like, it'll start singing the song just sporadically, like just all the time, like 30 times in a row the toy will go off, and then it'll stop. And so I've really helped her deal with the passing of her fiance, you know, unexpectedly. She's told me numerous times that she probably would have killed herself if I wouldn't have been there able to communicate with him. I feel like my gift is something that's important because I'm able to give some people closure, you know? Other people want way more than that, but most just want, you know, a goodbye with their loved ones.
Would you say that this is something that you've kind of been born with? Would you say that this is something that you've been born with, or? When I was in school, our teacher, her name is Karen Fox. She's a psychic and instructor and a massage therapist. She's done everything. She even worked for the National Department of Defense at one point. And she's a psychic, and she told us that everybody is born with this gift. Everybody can be psychic. Everybody can be spirit communicators. You know, we all are born with amazing gifts. It's just when we're brought up, we're told, you know, put that imagination to the side, you know, just put that on the back burner. That's not important. You know, what you need to do is read this book, learn this history, study these facts, and, you know, if you can't prove it with science, it's not real. We're told to put all that imagination, quote unquote, behind us, when really that's the key foundation of being gifted, I'll just say. I was brought up in a background with I didn't have a lot of structure growing up. My parents were young. They baptized me in a river, you know, like. In New Mexico. And, are you there? Yeah. I don't know what that was about.
Sorry. I heard it.
A little bit of a hiccup.
Weird. But so I was brought up, I never had a bedtime. My parents didn't believe in spanking. So I didn't have a lot of that traditional childhood. It was very free. Mm-hmm. Like, if you want to be religious, you can be religious. But we don't go to church. You know, we just are spiritual. And part of that led me to be so gifted because I didn't have to let go of anything. And the fact that I've been a lucid dreamer since I was 4 years old has been able to make my gifts more accessible, so to speak.
So it sounds like you're highly adept to all this other spiritual stuff that's going on. That's if I'm hearing you right, correct?
Correct.
And the spirit and the spiritual, the supernatural, and the paranormal. This has been something that's been your normal, really. It's not abnormal. It's pretty.
Yeah, it's well, until I went to school and really was able to what is the word I want to use? Like, hold on, honey. Here. Hold on 1 second. Oh my God.
Understandable.
Me all of a sudden. Here, take this.
Tell her we say hello.
You can. Oh wait. I have to open the door for her. Hold on 1 second.
Wow. For the people that are listening right now and in the future, I'll come back through and I'll edit it for you guys to where you can hear what the caller is saying.
I can't hear you. Hold on. Oh, wait. Can you hear me? Sorry.
I can hear you.
Okay. So where was I at? Or what were you asking?
The paranormal and the supernatural being basically your normal, to where you see these things and you're interacting, but it's pretty commonplace to you.
When I was younger, it wasn't. I just had a hard time focusing in school. Like, I wasn't good at math, but I could read and write really good. But I just didn't have an interest in school. Like, it didn't help me be conformed, though. You know what I mean? Like, I had a difficult time conforming to what society wanted growing up. And my parents were young, and they, like, were off and on. And then my mom went to college, and she really became educated. And she was a philosophy. She has her BA in philosophy. And so that growing up, too, also led me to question everything, you know, and I didn't really know about the paranormal stuff, though. I just was like, oh, ghosts, spooky, blah, blah, blah. But until I went to the classes and really started to tune in and meditate and become grounded, that's when it just opened. It was like the floodgates being opened, like just all this information poured in. All these readings I was doing for practice, because if you don't use like you said earlier, you said if you don't use it like a muscle, you're not going to be strong. It's not going to be strong. I was taught about the pineal gland in her classes that I took. And it just, so everything that's coming to light now, you know, like on social media, I just find that so great that I've already learned about it, so I actually know what's going on, and I feel, I'm like, geez, it's about time, you know, because I don't know about all that crap that they're always putting out there, because it's not relevant to me. And so I appreciate pages like yours and radio stations, because I feel a little bit connected to something then, you know? It's wonderful.
I hear you. You know, it's like whenever you're looking at this stuff, you don't want to seem like too crazy, because you want to absorb so much. You want to try to know as much as you can, but at the same time, you know, you don't want to seem like you're crazy. You want to try to like rationalize it and explain it to other people, but you don't want to seem like, you know, you don't want to be a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist. That's a very real thing.
Yeah, well, it was really relieving to me when I started taking the classes, and because every class we at least did 2 hours worth of volunteer readings with these strangers. None of us knew anybody. I mean, it was a group of, like, there was, 10 to 12 students, and then the teacher, and then all these volunteers. And so doing these readings, they were like, the first thing that comes to mind with you, just say it, because it probably has nothing to do with you. And I was like, no way. I'm not going to, I always second guess myself, and it's always wrong the second time. And so when I did this, I sit down across from the person, and I go, I see, yellow walls with an old school kitchen with white cabinets, and there's a cat on a little bed in the corner. And they're like, oh, my God, it's my childhood kitchen. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, what? That was intense, because I just, it's just weird things like that. And it really relieved a lot of weight that I carried, because I knew that all this stuff that I was doing, or what I was thinking, wasn't mine. It was all these other people around me. And having the ability to actually say, oh, my gosh, that weight that I'm carrying isn't even mine, or those feelings that I'm having, it's the person next to me, because I was so sensitive to them that I feel like crap all of a sudden. I go in the classroom and sit down, and, at school when I was younger, I remember, and I just feel like all these different emotions where I couldn't even focus on the task at hand. So it was relieving more than anything. And the closure that I've helped people gain has been really rewarding for me, because, like, I don't know, it's a euphoric feeling. And a lot of people don't believe in it, and they don't want to, because I charge for my services, okay, like, because it takes a lot out of me if I don't. Like, I can do a reading that's unexpected and just spontaneous, and I could lay out for the next 24 hours and be asleep, because because it's taken so much out of me. And I don't realize that when I'm giving the reading, it just happens afterwards. And so I charge for my services, and people, go ahead. Yes?
If you don't mind me asking real quick, would you say that there's kind of a twofold question to you. Would you say that there's kind of people who are kind of spiritually turned off, who have no idea that these types of things are happening, and have you come in contact with spirits and entities? Like, do you actually see people carrying ghosts around, or do you see people actually? Like, there's a lot of different questions that I'd like to ask you. If anything.
No problem. So I see everything like on your TV or some TVs they have that where you can watch two different channels at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Type feature where it's like split in half. Well, I put that. That's how I am. I see when I come in contact with somebody that wants a reading, because I don't do it with. I turn it off any other time because it's too much. It's too much. There's things out there that I don't want to see. That I'll be able to see just if I open up that door. And it's all about opening your third eye and your crown chakra. Like, that's where it funnels in for me, at least. And a lot of people don't know that they have that open. And that's why they're seeing those things also. Or something traumatic happens to them, it becomes open all of a sudden. And they're like, oh, I was able to see this, So it's like I'm watching a second screen right above my head, like on my right side. And I just see what their loved ones want to show me through it. Or I hear them, But a lot of the time people have a lot of, I'll call them demons, but they're dark energy. They're, they're the weight of the world, and they'll be carrying that around with them, and they won't even know it. But I can see it. But I'm not going to go tell them about it, because a lot of people will hurt you over something like that. Like, they're like, what are you talking about? You don't know me. And they become violent, and then sorry, I get nervous. That energy feeds off of them. Is how I see it, at least.
No, I definitely agree. Would you say that there's? Yeah. Have you ever had anybody ever ask you, like, or tell you that you're practicing witchcraft, or try to like condemn you for having these like innate natural abilities?
Yes, lots of people will look at you like. That's why I don't tell that many people, because I'll endanger myself. And there's always the people that don't believe it, that want to believe it, but they can't believe that anything like that would be possible. But yeah, there's, nobody in my face has been like, you're a witchcraft, but, at my grandmother's funeral, I got up in the middle of the funeral and I spoke out and I gave a medium message to my really religious, like, Catholic family, and was like, blah, 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 blah. She says this about you and that about you. And you get over yourself. And my uncle got up after I finally sat down, and he said, I don't know about medium, but she looks more like an extra large. And I was like, you dick. Like, excuse my language, but you effing ass. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, you're so mean to me. You're so mean. Like, he just brushed it off, and they all laughed. And I was like, God, my grandmother and I were just sitting there, like, she was in spirit, and she was like, these sons of bitches are my children. Like,
so if you could you, is there any way you could kind of like differentiate between like what is actually a human spirit versus a I don't know, what's a human spirit versus like an actual demon? Because personally, I feel like there's animal spirits, there's humans, and
right. Well, oh gosh, animal spirits are crazy. I'm just saying, in my experience with them, they know they don't have to listen to you. You know, they know there's no treat if they do what you say, in a sense. And so, and they really like to go inside people's houses, animal spirits, just on a side note. They really like to come inside because most of them have never been inside, and so they like to come inside your house. But with dark energy or just the demons, all that whole, it's the category black. You know what I mean? Like just the darkness, right? Because that's everything. Like the shadow people, they suck. I'm just going to say that right off the bat. They suck. I'm not exactly sure what they are. I just know that they weren't human. Like you just know that they're not, because they'll be doing weird things that human spirits don't do. Like they won't be munching on like, oh, go ahead.
Would you see them like hovering around certain types of people or certain types of like institutions or places, or is there? I don't know. Can you actually visibly see them?
Yes, because you can just. Well, I feel it too. It's not necessarily seeing it always. I always think seeing and feeling and hearing, it's all one. You know, it's knowing. Actually, it's just knowing. Yes, certain locations where there's residual negative actions happening, like whether it's yelling at your loved one or, you know, breaking things or killing things or just harming yourself, if that's happened like more than 5 times in one location, I feel like it creates something that's there, that's waiting to feed again off of it.
So are there like, so there's obviously different types of spirits that we're dealing with. We're talking about animal consciousness, we're talking about past loved ones, and we're talking about actual entities. Would you say that they're still here, or like you said, they're only on places whenever there's something that's tragic happened, and they don't act human? Do you think maybe it's like
I feel like they're pretty. Like there's a reason why you see them in a certain area. I'm not exactly sure. This is just my point of view. Oh, everybody, you know, in my experience, I feel like there's a reason why you see them where you see them. There's something. I feel like they feed. They're there because they're feeding. They're there keeping themselves going. And it's really weird. I don't know. It's kind of like when the sun rises every morning and the plants become alive. You know, they get their sun and they become alive, and they, you know, it's like that. It's like you cannot always have the darkness because the sun comes out every day, you know? So they're always being fought constantly by the light, in a sense.
And it seems like you're doing a lot of spiritual work as well. Have you ever been called to kind of cleanse a house or exorcise spirits or anything like that?
I have, for anything negative, you mean?
Yes.
No, I haven't done that. I try to stay away from that just because I don't want to
bring them with you.
Okay, hold on. Can you hold on 1 second? My daughter needs me. Hold on. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Oh.
And that's how this stuff works. You know, one of the reasons why I'm trying to ask so many different questions is to try to
this stuff out. I think people have an innate understanding of these spiritual factors of everything that we're discussing, but whenever you're actually dealing with somebody who's been involved in the spiritual warfare, in this battle, so to speak, you know, it becomes something else entirely. That's why, you know, in my own investigations, like I said, you know, you look at some of the stuff that takes place, and it kind of blows your mind. You know, when you get yourself in the battlefield, all you have is yourself in prayer. You've got to learn to rebuke that fear. You've got to learn to conquer that fear and learn that it's greater than you, or that you're greater than that fear. You're greater than that emotion and these things that are trying to bind you. Now these spirits that we were basically talking about in so many different ways, and I'm sorry for the people who couldn't listen to the conversation. We'll get that up for you. This is very real stuff to somebody who is going about their day. They have the sight. They can see these things. They were born with this. That doesn't mean that they're demonic. That doesn't mean that they're witches. This is the second sight. This is that other sense. This is that thing that we have innately that has been suppressed. You see, it's with us all the time. One of the things I wanted to get her opinion on, and we actually lost her on the call. Hopefully she decides to call back. And, that's great, because we can have people who call in and tell us these things who have more information than us. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I definitely want to ask as many questions as possible. But looking at this stuff, trying to really come to grips with how it affects us, how we're interacting, how it changes us, or at least how we're changed in perspective to it, is very real. Like, it's like how much more wild can that get? And then one of the things I wanted to ask her too is, how do you differentiate between a loved spirit, as we talked about at the start of the show, and an actual demonic spirit? Because we're told that these things can masquerade as angels of light. How does it work when we're actually able to see them? How can we tell? We're meant to test the spirits, but I'm curious, and I think we have her calling back in. Let's see if we can get her on.
Sorry.
Ask her the question.
Yes, I can hear you.
No, you're fine.
And caller, can you hear me?
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know. I think I meant to hit the mute button, but then I hit it wasn't. I'm pretty sure it wasn't your system. It was me.
You are fine. It happens.
Okay. So I'm gonna smoke a cigarette, because when I talk about this stuff, I get a little nervous. Like, it brings a little uneasiness to the room. You know what I mean? Or I don't know if you know.
Oh, I understand.
But it does for me. So so if I sound like I'm smoking, I am. That's all I want to say. There's nothing weird on the phone to the line that you're hearing. That's my point. So what was your question? I was trying to listen in before, but what was it?
How do you differentiate between a loved one, an actual human spirit, and a demon spirit? Have you ever had to have that distinction?
Yes, I have. I don't know if you know the Ghost Adventures crew, but my husband and I have watched that show since the very first episode. We watched every episode. It's like our date night type thing. So we were watching one of those episodes, and something like was weird was going on in the episode, and then in our house at the same time. And like I said, I don't always see it. I feel it or I hear it. I use my clairs, like clairsentience,
clairaudio and claircognizance.
Yes.
Yeah.
I use all of my clairs, and so I don't know exactly. That's why I'm so versatile in getting the messages, because not always they can appear for me or they can talk to me. Like, sometimes it's just Pictionary, or is that the right game, or charades or whatever, where you have to guess the word from the actions the person's making or drawing. Sometimes it's just that. And so when I can't see them, it's really hard to tell if they're here for good or bad. But usually within the first 5 minutes, I can tell, because they'll start acting weird. It'll just get weird, and there's no other way to describe it other than just like uncomfortable.
Like
and I'm
uneasy.
comfortable with myself all the time. Yes, you'll just be like, what the heck is that? Like, you'll see something or feel something that's just not good, and it could be even a little odd, but it's just not right. And that's one of the things I was also taught how to do in school. So the education that I received on psychic studies was well-rounded. Well, it was just awesome.
And what was this school? If you don't mind me asking, it seems like it sounds like X-Men to a degree. Like they're just over here educating you on all kinds of different matters. Oh, maybe. Okay. I think we might have lost a caller there. That happens. It happens all the time. Hopefully she either calls back in or we're going to continue. I'm sorry that call dropped. I don't know why. Hopefully they try to call back in. But
hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Well, that was weird.
Oh.
Yeah?
I know. I couldn't hear you, but it wouldn't let me hang up.
There's been a lot of strangeness surrounding this entire episode.
Yes.
And everything else. You're fine.
Okay. So what was the question? I'm sorry.
This school that you went to, or this training, it sounds like a training facility or a training program or an awareness program.
It was the Aspen Program for Psychic Development in Denver, Colorado. But they closed recently, like in the last 2 years, because she moved, Karen Fox, the instructor, and the main dean of the school, she moved back out east, like somewhere on the East Coast, so it closed down, which really is unfortunate. And it was mainly just a whole bunch of chicks in class. Only one class was there a guy, ever. I'm just saying. There's lots of guy volunteers, not lots of them, but a few of them that would come and volunteer for a reading, but it was mainly just women talking to women. That's all it really was. It was really just a femme stuff, I guess.
So whenever, I don't know, have you ever seen any people that have been like involved in the occult and kind of gone the opposite path of you? Have you actually seen people that are like witches, warlocks? The
one man that came to class one time, he, as a student, I just got this creepy feeling from him instantly, and of course he chooses to be my partner right away. And so I'm like, damn it. But he was really like, he ended up asking questions at the end of class that were really like not okay, like about just the occult and like black magic and I was like, how did our teacher not know about this? Like, how come she didn't like cancel his class, his fee that he paid? Because it was weird. I felt it instantly, and then at the end of class he came out like that. But nobody in the class, as far as I know, that graduated was there for any other reason than a higher consciousness and some answers to some paranormal things that happened to them. And them wanting to give back to the human race and animals and everything.
And have you ever, I don't know, has there ever been like any kind of contact with people that are of that persuasion? Would you say there's like a rise of people that are either practicing magic or exploring psychic behavior or exploring any of these kind of spiritual activism or this mysticism?
You'd think that there is a lot of people seeking like a class to go to or something like that. Because if you look on the internet, there's all types of programs, but a lot of them I feel are like not true. They're not to benefit you to being a better you. They're just out to seek your energy, and I feel like there is a rise and a pull in good energy being flipped into bad. Does that make sense?
Like an inversion, so to speak.
Yes. Like it's odd. Like all those famous women that are, I'm doing the witchcraft against Donald Trump. Like, please, could you use it to something more effective? Like, I'm just like, oh my God, you're gonna just gang up on one man. I mean, no offense to anybody that, whatever. It's just a man. I look at him as a man, okay? Because you can't give all that energy to one guy and not feed some type of negative power that might be using him too.
Yep.
It just doesn't make sense. So go ahead and keep on doing that witchcraft against Donald Trump. I just think it's a trick. It's a trick. It's a trick.
I agree. I agree.
It's so stupid. It's just I just try to stay away from that because I just feel like I'm not the one, like you're not going to get anything from me. Like I will not be connected to that in case the stuff does hit the fan and they call out all the people that they know whose energy went to it. That's what I feel like. I feel like there's a higher power out there that knows everybody's individual energy and knows what they spend their time doing with it.
Would you say would you say? Because I definitely hear you, and I'm right there with you with these witches that are practicing witchcraft against Trump. You know, they're if anything just giving rise to a force that's already present in his life and basically amplifying
that a force
it.
that is like you can't mess with that force in a sense. It's like been there since the beginning. Like you don't even know what you're dealing with. Like that force is just laughing at you. You know, and that's what it makes me feel like. I feel like if you just keep on doing good with yourself and your energy, that you will in turn. Like, even if you have a hard, rough life, it doesn't matter. That shit, that doesn't matter. You know, when I believe in reincarnation, and I feel like all these evil people that are out there, I feel like they finally were reincarnated into a human, and they're just like, yes, it's my time to wreak havoc as a human. Like, I've been a lizard for so long, you know? Like, that's seriously how I feel, because I'm just like, why else would they have to be so freaking horrible as a human? Like, you know? Like,
it makes
I
sense.
don't know. It's just, right? Like, I'm just like, they finally got their human form, and they're like, ah! Like, I'm going to cause some damage, you know? Like, you know, and that's just like, that's how I feel. And the people that are born in just like maybe a difficult life, but nothing too, it's just horrible what goes on around the world. But I'm saying in America, I'm just going to speak from my point of view as an American. The people that are reincarnated into Americans are just like, you know, they needed a break from whatever else was going on in their past lives, in a sense. You know? Because you kind of miss being an American. You do. I mean, whether you have dirty water or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you still get a break from whatever else you'd have to be doing anywhere else in the world.
No. You are right. I definitely agree. So closing thoughts. What do you want to tell the people? Because I want to cover a few more of these stories and hopefully try to take a few more calls. It's definitely been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you very much. I feel so much better sharing with more than just one person about this. I feel like if we just quit reading all the propaganda and keep focused on the history that Earth has shown us, you know, not necessarily like what's been written, but just the Earth itself, what it's done in the past, and focus on that and not exactly climate change, you know, just look at things deeper and look at things that be here because the sun is out, you know? Look at things that come naturally and don't zone in on all this BS about, you know, I mean, I almost think that the demons are BS too because it's just something you're going to think about. And when you think about it, it's attracted to you. Like my mom always said growing up, she said, don't think about aliens, don't talk about aliens, don't watch alien movies. You can watch vampire stuff all you want, but don't watch anything about aliens because if you think about it, they will come. And I was like, well, you're crazy. You know, but as I'm older, I'm like, oh, it's kind of true. You know, so don't focus on all this scary stuff. Because it'll have its time, I feel like, in each of our lives. So don't let it be there when it doesn't have to be.
I agree. Sometimes I feel like sometimes people say they want experiences. People say that, you know, they actually want to see aliens, they want to see ghosts, they want to see demons, and then whenever it shows up, it traumatizes them. It scares them.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, anybody that's had a paranormal experience sitting there going, man, I want that to happen again every day. Like, no. They're going, oh my God, nobody's going to believe me. I might be crazy. Like,
and that's why,
you know,
that's
or they
why
might
we have this.
document it in a journal, you know, they might do something positive with it, like keep it in a book for their grandchildren to read them at night. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I hear you. That's why we do the show. That way people know they're not crazy.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll hopefully have you on again.
Yes, I'm sure we'll speak again. Have a good night. Goodbye.
You as well. And wow, isn't it always a pleasure? It is always a pleasure when people pop in and chime in just to share their 2 cents, to share their experiences. And that's really what it's about. You know, for the people that are listening, think about that. Think about how that is that lady's life. Think about how that is her commonplace. To see these types of things, to differentiate between these spirits, between these different types of practices, between these types of methods and techniques, and all these things that we're going against. not even going against, that are here naturally.
But we don't engage them. We don't talk about them. We don't know about them because they've been considered paranormal. They've been considered strange. They've been considered abnormal, out of place. But when really they're inherent to you. We have been taught, as she said, we have been taught to turn ourselves off. We have been taught to only look at things in a scientific nature, in a scientific fashion, to where it is comprehensible, it is tangible, it is physical, it is categorical. I can look at it, I can see it, I can touch it, I can feel it. We're moving into a world now to where that's not the case, to where sixth sense, seventh sense, being aware of the fourth dimension of time, the fifth dimension, space, looking at all these, third dimension space, looking at all these other things that are going on in our orientation and our connection to them. That is the world that we're moving into. I think a lot of people have a problem looking at the paranormal or the supernatural or all of this stuff, because to them it shows something that they can't control. It shows something that they can't ignore, but is still present. That's why, whenever we look at these things, we have to understand how the understanding, the overstanding, and the understanding of all this spiritual stuff, it is taking years, it is taking decades, it is taking generations to try to come to grips with what is happening to us. Why do we have to refer to these things as demons? Why does that term from the medieval time find its way here into the present? Why are we still trying to figure out what exactly we're dealing with? Back in 2015, I think 2015 or 2016, and I talk about this all the time. It was the Thunder Energies Corporation. They talked about disclosing information about ITEs, invisible terrestrial entities, and how they were hovering over installations, military installations, and civilian public places. That's why whenever I ask the caller, have you seen any of these entities kind of hovering around certain places, certain people? And as we illustrated before with the story with the Native American man and the Ouija board, maybe it was attached to the actual house. Maybe it was attached to the ground. Maybe it was attached to the board. There is something just right there outside of our plane of interaction that has an influence on us, as I keep trying to reiterate time and time again. And when looking at it, trying to understand it, we have to see that these things that we can't see do influence us. So back to the ITEs, back to the invisible terrestrial entities. Where are these things? What spectrum of light are they being perceived? How can we look at what is happening around us? This is the crux of transhumanism to some degree as well. The idea behind it is to literally transcend our human experience by using technology. You see, they'll be able to put neural implants and ocular implants to make us see different spectrums of light, to where there's other multidimensional creatures there. That's the idea behind it. But why are they trying to hijack a sense that we normally have? Why are we not supposed to see these demons? Why are we not supposed to be engaging with these spirits? You see, I think there's a lot of different things and a lot of aspects. I have so many questions, and that is why I carry on the investigations in the way that I do. But it's wild. It's wild. So we definitely got sidetracked. Let's see if we can get back into some of these stories. And guys, really, I appreciate having you call in. Like I said, I'm still trying to work out a few kinks. Like I said, a beta episode into season 5. We are always working on expansion. So let's get into this story right here. And this is sent in to us by CrestX. And this is the story that I mentioned to you guys at the start of the show. And it says that my brother and I shared a bedroom. The story about the fire truck lights in the room. But the story goes like this. My brother and I shared a bedroom. his bed on one side and mine on the other, with a rectangular window in the middle. One night, we both woke up at the same time to rotating white lights. It looked like a fire truck, but just white, like bright white, flashing into our window. While this happened, our beds were rocking and slamming hard, and it sounded like a train was coming through our room. But what I remember about my reaction was that I wasn't scared, but I knew I was being scared, and I think that's a great distinction between the two. I wasn't scared. I know I was being scared. The blinds on the window were just hanging, or just banging harder and harder against the window. We lived in an apartment, nowhere near a train track. I remember looking outside and not seeing anything, just pure black. Like, I don't remember what I saw. I looked at my brother, calmly laid down, and put the blanket covering over my head. We've never talked about it, and then that next morning, I tell my mom about the weird dream I had, and she tells me that my brother told her the same story right before leaving for work. So what do you think that is? Is that a poltergeist? Is it a UFO encounter? Is it a demon? Is it a trickster spirit? What could that be? What could that be? Was there an episode of Missing Time? Were these children taken somewhere? Did they disappear? Were there encounters? There are so many strange things surrounding just children alone, and so many strange things surrounding all this paranormal stuff. It's mind-blowing. Speaking of kids, I have another story, somewhat involving kids. This gentleman talks about how this balloon was just caught in his house and just trailing him, following him everywhere he went. Super strange. Super strange. And this is sent in to us by the real Let's Go Beats. And it goes like this. It says, I was cooking, and then there was a foil balloon from my son's birthday still up in the dining room ceiling, which is next to the kitchen. While cooking, it floated down to my head level and started coming towards me. I proceeded to cook chicken, and then I smacked the balloon away. As you would. No one likes balloons in the kitchen. That's a fire waiting to happen. I assume that because the fan was on from the grease, that this fan somehow attracted the balloon. When I smacked it away, it started floating back towards me. So I grabbed the string, walked it back into the dining room, and threw it back towards the ceiling in the upper right-hand corner by our china closet. I continued to try to cook my chicken for another 10 minutes, and then when I finished, I walked towards the dining room door, which was the dining room, looked up at the balloon, and said, beat that. I walked past the dining room, past the living room, took a right into the hallway, took another right to go up the stairs to my apartment, and when I'm upstairs, I try to unwind, but as I'm doing that, there's an extension cord that I was using that went downstairs, and it got tugged. At first, I ignored the tug, figured it might have just, slipped down the stairs. After I get done just trying to rationalize the first tug, it gets tugged again, but this time harder, as if somebody stepped on it, coming up the stairs. I said, F this. Who the F is coming up these stairs because of, the way that it was tugged? I ran and opened the door to the hallway to the staircase, and as soon as I opened the door, that balloon was in my face, like face-to-face level. It's completely impossible for that dying balloon to make its way past 3 rooms, make a right into a hallway past the doorway, to make another right past the doorway, to go up a flight of stairs. No one else was home. Crazy. Crazy. Now, things like that, you could chop it up to coincidence. You could chop it up to, exhaustion, work exhaustion. You could chop it up to a lot of different things, but I don't know how something does that. I don't know how something finds its way around you. You see, I don't know how those types of things happen. Why would you be basically followed by a balloon? Sounds like something out of Stephen King's It, and that's even crazier. One of the things I'm actually glad that the caller brought up was the fact that she is seeing a rise in occultists and people that are practicing magic, that are practicing these types of things. She also mentioned the witches that bind Trump. Very well aware that there are people out there trying to put forth that energy and that negativity in an attempt to try to bind him from hurting someone else. One of the things I think is interesting is how she made the connection, or how the conversation created the connection that, think about that. Think about those forces already that are behind Trump, the negative ones, right? And I'm not here to talk about the duality back and forth, the two-party system, the two wolves deciding on how they're going to eat the sheep. I'm not here to talk about that. What I am here to talk about is the forces that are driving those wolves to decide on what it is they're going to eat, how they're going to eat us. When these witches are practicing this witchcraft, they could be empowering the other forces, the dark forces. As I keep saying, this is just a continuation from spirit cooking. This is just a continuation of Marina Abramovich and her satanic art. Low-level stuff is what we're dealing with. Occultists who have no idea of what they're doing, the gateways that they're opening, the portals and the doorways that they're kicking open simply because of Trump, who's using the energy to manifest something. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. You got to ask yourself, or at least I do. I really do ask myself, why is that going on? If it's simple, if it's not real, why isn't it going away? Why are we still dealing with this? People easily try to dismiss it simply because it's something that they can't understand. You know, that's probably why they put it in books, because people don't read books these days. Just saying. I want to write a book. I definitely want to write a book. This was an actual story sent in to us by Miss Jane Maytum, and she actually contacted us after a show that I did with Lori, who unfortunately couldn't be on the panel with us. I didn't want her to be here whenever we were experiencing all these other problems with rolling out the new software and everything else we're doing. But the story, I actually think I talked about it before, but this is with Miss Jane Maytum, and she talks about some of the experiences she had in her house, and another experience she actually had with a friend. But this is, again, another one of those stories that kind of illustrates or asks or begs the question, where is the actual haunting, and what is the haunting about? Is it local? Is it only here? Maybe it's, no, I don't know. Maybe it's a doll, maybe it's an item, maybe it's a trinket, maybe it's something, maybe it's witchcraft that people have etched into the actual foundation of the house and just painted over. You see, let me get into the story, and this is by Miss Jane Maytum. It says, I will start with this story, which happened to me. I was about 7 or 8. I lived in a small town in western Pennsylvania with my parents and older brother. We lived in a large ranch house on top of a hill. The bedrooms were on one end of the house, and an add-on sunroom was at the other, where we watched TV. My brother and I were in our own rooms, and my parents were watching a sitcom on TV. This would have had to have been in the late 60s. I was almost not quite asleep when I heard a very, very evil laugh in the distance. This laughter was like nothing I had ever heard before. It was a monstrous and horrible laugh. Immediately, I felt fear and strained my ears to determine where this laugh was coming from. I listened to the sounds of the TV in the sunroom, but the studio laughter did not match what I heard. Meanwhile, whoever was laughing sounded as if they were slowly walking from some distance to me. I was paralyzed by fear. And in my terror, I began to cry out to God in my head, not aloud, calling him Father. And it's important to note that I had not been raised in church or with much in any way of a religion. I had heard of God, but always thought of him as just God, or not Father. The laughter and the sense of evil continued to draw closer, ever closer, and my cries came faster and faster, screaming, Father, Father, Father. In a truly horrific moment, I realized that whoever was laughing was no longer a distance away, but it somehow passed into my mind and was almost ready to take me out. I screamed, not out loud, but in my head, with all I could muster, one last Father. And instantly, the sense of evil and laughter was gone, and I felt a wave of love and peace. I knew I'd been rescued from something terrible, otherworldly, and from that point on, I praised God for hearing me and saving me. This event spurred me to find a relationship with God, even though no one else in my family seems so inclined. Decades later, I mentioned this to my mother, that there was something in that house, and she quickly agreed, but she didn't discuss it beyond that. So thank you, Miss Jane Maytum. There is a lot of things to talk about when it comes to this. You know, I think, and this is what we talked about with the caller, you know, a lot of people say they want experiences, they want to be able to come into contact with these entities and with these spirits, not necessarily knowing what kind of doorways they're opening, what kind of what kind of things they're allowing to come into their life, what kind of things that they're allowing to have access to them. Now, I'm not saying Miss Jane Maytum was one of that, but I think she illustrated perfectly how these things gradually happen, how they try to exact as much fear, and that's exactly what it is. It is fear to these entities. That's what they need. That's how this works. They try to block us. They don't want us to know that we have the power. The caller, as I said, mentioned how we have these things. We're born with these abilities. How we can see these things. It's not, it's definitely not advocated. People aren't saying, go out and go see these spirits, but they're actually saying at the same time, look at what's going on. Look at the wider world that you're involved in. We went over a story at the start of the show about how, or towards the middle part of the show, about a individual who was basically talking about, Ginny Juliet. Yeah, Ginny was talking about, nope, it wasn't, oh, it's not Ginny. Sorry about that. But we were talking about how someone, Joey's conspiracy. Boom. There you go. Sorry. So many different stories, trying to get them all together for you guys. We were talking about how Joey literally had to be snapped out of his trance, succumbing to this non-existence feeling, as if a blackness came over him. So many of these stories and things that we've talked about here illustrate this very, very paranormal perspective that we're living in, this very, very super normal world, supernatural existence, this occult world that is taking place. One of the reasons why I keep trying to not necessarily jump all over the place, but talk about the paranormal and the occult world at the same time is because they're intrinsically linked, the same way CERN is linked to what is going on in our world today. What happens whenever you have people trying to bridge dimensions, trying to bridge the gap between worlds, trying to change the natural flow? There's bound to be some energetic exchange. These things that continue to happen and will continue to happen and have been happening, that only happen in shorter spurts, are going to happen for longer periods of time. I constantly, a lot in this season, because of last year, I played General Mark Milley talking about us having to combat hybrid armies, little green men, terrorists, tribes, national leaders, and local leaders, and things of this nature. That was a veiled illusion. What was he alluding to? That was a message. What was he trying to say? What was he trying to educate us on? You see. And I think the only way to explain it is he's talking about the things that are coming down the path. Why was CERN's director at Bilderberg? Why is CERN now releasing its own artificial intelligence? One of the more crazy, my own conspiracy theory, one of the crazier theories that I've actually had doing all this is trying to understand the alien situation, the grays, so to speak. I need to figure out a way to talk about this better, but I feel like they are somehow artificial or synthetic biological constructs that are basically constructs and conduits that are being used to house these spirits. And I've talked about this before with Lori and other people, the techno-sorcery aspect. When we're looking at dimensions, when we're looking at spirituality, when we're looking at magic, when we're looking at our world, all these things, they are very, very intrinsically linked with one another. What happens when you have something come through into this world? Where is it going to go? If it doesn't find some place to go back instead of back into its own world, if it doesn't find a place to go, it's going to roam and find things that are compatible, i.e. a person, maybe an animal, maybe even an object like a statue, right? What can house whatever has been brought through. People don't want to get possessed because then you get people pushed out of their own body. That's crazy. Where are you going to get animals that can that it can be demonically possessed and controlled at the same time? Oh, well, not much an object can do if it has something within it as well. It's just an artifact, a trinket, something that it can be picked up and thrown away. What I'm trying to allude to is creating the fourth option, creating something specifically that can house the actual spirit itself, something that is designed to keep the entity, you see. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a world to where high occultic magic has become the norm. High occultic spells, techno sorcery, and everything else that we see happening here, they are all intertwined. As I said before, trying to realize this whole multidimensional aspect of our existence, of what's going on. You know, the psychic behavior, the paranormal behavior, them messing with our dimension, messing with our time spatial orientation, and things of this nature. There's a lot that comes with just trying to figure out what goes on in our world, guys. And trying to, not one post can do it, not one episode can do it, not one interview can do it, not one anything should do it. Because trying to understand this world, ourselves, and everything that comes with it, that is a daily effort. That's something you got to work towards every day. Every day. And whenever I have people, like I said at the start of the show, whenever we have people who send in their stories, the point of us doing this is to let you know that you're okay, that you're not crazy, that these things are happening, and that you're not alone. You see, I know, as strange as it might seem, we are, we really are living in even stranger days. But as much as a joy as this episode has been, and I wish we'd had more callers. I wish we'd have had more people involved in general. I wish we would have just been able to, I think having more people on, talking about this type of stuff from their point of view definitely would have added a whole different flavor to the show. But that's a lot of what I want to do in the coming season, guys, is to have you guys on, explain these things, talk about things from your perspective, from the listener's perspective, from the perspective of people who are on the outside looking in or the inside looking out, wanting to explain these types of things. I have had such a blast doing all this stuff with you guys. I've had such a blast having people on the show, being able to go on to other people's shows, conducting interviews, doing all this research and talking with you guys on so many different topics and being able to talk about so many different things. From the always ever lightful Lori Alexander, the co-host of the Underground Resistance Network. It is always a pleasure having her on. To Zach sharing his premonitions and his visions twice, twice, to having Billy Carson on twice in one season, to having Charles Casson of Truth Terrorism on, to Billy Carson again, setting up that interview with Donnie Arcade, to Rob and Jonas of Libertas and Terraplane Truth, for them coming on to talk about Flat Earth. Christine of I Wake Sheeple. We're always talking because there's a lot of different things going on, and the future that we have planned for you guys is health as well. There's so much stuff that this season has brought forth, and that's why I wanted to do this episode in that way, to talk about these types of things, to get it out there. Even Ron Johnson of Stranger Than Fiction News, if you're listening to this, you are the resistance. Like, we had him on. we've done so much. It's because of you guys, it's because of the support, because of people listening and genuinely wanting to help us continue the work, continue being better, continue driving forward this knowledge, kicking the can down the road, doing this information justice, getting it out there to the people. And it's really been an honor. I really can't say enough. I really can't, it's an honor to even be able to do these types of things. It's an honor to have a show. It's an honor to have people appreciate all of the work that I'm doing. And that's really why I want to try to make it better for you guys as much as I can. And that's why I try to every day. Each broadcast, I want to try to get a little bit better. So obviously, with the call-in feature, we will definitely get this sorted out because you have a voice. That's what this show is. It is a platform for your voice, for your message to get out there so that we can literally start having these conversations about these things that matter. And this season, oh man, I myself am a little bit surprised at times. I'll be honest about everything that's been covered. So really, thank you. That's really all I can keep saying. Thank you guys for letting me contend, letting me get involved, letting me be a part of your life, letting me be my weird self with you, and you guys appreciating it. But that's where I'm going to have to cut the episode short, and I'm going to have to say thank you for tuning in to this season 4 final episode. We will definitely be doing more like it. This was an awesome Paranormal Perspective. I'm glad that we had people called in, and I'm glad we had these things talked about, and we hit as much as we did. I wish it could do more. Wish there was a better episode, but this is what we got, and I'm so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for you guys. But I'm going to stop ranting. I'm going to stop going off on all that. But make sure you guys are listening to the episodes. Download all of them before they are taken off. You can stream the episodes, the audio versions, and go listen to the previous season. And make sure you're paying attention to the website, because we're going to switch it up to deal with all the informational flow and all the other content that we're putting out for you guys, because you deserve it. As I say all the time, we diversify the information because you deserve it, and that's really where we're at these days. That's really where we're at these days. But thank you guys for an incredible season. Thank you so much for everything, really. And I can't wait to see you on season 5. I can't wait to see you guys here in a few. But that's all I really have for you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll have it in the description bar below. Or leave us a voicemail at 843-900-6296. And as always, guys, stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, out.
A message from